I'm gonna let you take over on this, Nora, because you did most of the planning on it and everything, so we'll just let you run with it.
No, this is gonna be an informational meeting. It's between the board, Mike, and committee that we had organized to become a city. So otherwise, it's gonna be no questions from the public, because we have to decide if we want to hire Mike and his firm and that first and that. And the more questions the board and the committee can get answered, the better off we are. You know, we don't want anybody interfering. So with that, I'll open it up to you, Mike.
Thank you. My name is Mike Corey. I'm with the law firm of Corey and Ruby in St. Michael. My history with annexation issues and
Give me 1
incorporation
second.
issues.
Are you having a hard time hearing back there? Would it be better? Maybe if we can get you to sit up here so you're gonna project a little bit more that way. Because we're close enough, I think. Yeah. Do we have that chair over there? Oh, okay.
My name is Mike Corey. I'm with the law firm of Corey and Ruby in St. Michael. We specialize in representing cities and townships. Represent 300 and some townships, maybe about 15 cities. A number of those are townships that we incorporated into a city. I've been doing this work for 34 years, I believe it is. My history with annexation goes back to, funny enough, involves Castle Rock. Our office was retained by Empire Township back in 1993, 94 to defend against the the annexation by Farmington. I think they looked at 8 square miles in Empire and 2 down here in Castle Rock, if I remember right. Jim Sheldon defended. You guys did an excellent job. I don't know if you remember Jim.
I sure do.
Jim was phenomenal at cross-examination. It was just 5, 6 questions and the witness was done. I mean, it was great to see. So that was the beginning of it. Since then, we've incorporated, and I should know it, and I'd have to count them all up, but I believe it's 6 cities, from townships to cities. Beginning with St. Augusta in 2000, we went to what is now the city of now then was Burns Township. I believe that was 2009 or so, maybe 8. 2015 was Rice Lake. Here's where it starts to get a little blurry in the years because I went pretty quick. We had Credit River next. Then I think it was Empire after that. That was probably about 3 years ago. And then last year we ended up incorporating the city of Baldwin, Baldwin Township out of Sherburne County. All of those were in front of the Office of Administrative Hearings, now the Court of Administrative Hearings. We just had a name change, same place, same people. Incorporation is, I mean, on average, we're probably seeing 3 of them a decade. There were a couple more, there were 2 that we didn't do in 05, 06, that would have been Columbus, and maybe Scandia. I think it was Scandia over in Washington County. All the others we've done, at least by my count that I can see. So fairly well experienced with them. Of the townships that we have incorporated, you would by far be the smallest. I think St. Augusta was probably 3,300 people when we incorporated them. Rice Lake, maybe 4,300, I think somewhat similar for now then. Credit River, 5,000 some change. Empire, about 3,300, 3,400, maybe 35, somewhere in there. And Baldwin, 7,000, I think. Currently, we are, in fact, in 3 weeks, we are going to trial on Bemidji's, it's Northern's incorporation opposed by Bemidji. So it's somewhat of a situation that we had in St. Augusta. The bigger city is opposing the township from incorporating. That township's about 4,400 people or so. And that will go to hearing in about 3 weeks. And we'll be there for about 2 weeks, a 2-week hearing. So that'll be an ugly one. Yours will be, like I say, it'll be the smallest township. But when you look at, by population, but when you look at the issues, there really are three standards for incorporation, any one of which, if you hit, if you prove your case, the judge may incorporate you. Doesn't have to, but may. Those standards are, the big one is urban or suburban, or about to become so. There's no definition for urban or suburban, so it varies by place, and you really, what is urban up north is different than what is urban down here, or suburban. Second one is incorporation would be in the best interest of the area, and that generally means of the township area. That's another one that we end up having to prove. And the last one is incorporation would, I don't remember the exact words, but basically is necessary to promote the health, safety, and welfare of the public. And that's usually something that comes about when we see we have an environmental issue out there, and we're gonna come in and put in a sewer and water system. St. Augusta had that, for instance. They incorporated without sewer and water. Shortly after incorporation, they installed sewer and water. That was a big part of their case. And that, when you have those kind of investments, you definitely need to incorporate, because you don't want to be in a situation where you bond, you issue $5 million in debt to put in sewer and water lines, and a year later it all gets annexed out and you guys have the debt. So that is one of the issues that we face. But those are your three standards. So when you look at it and say, can we meet any of those three standards? When you look at your population and you look at the way your housing is developed, you're different than Empire. Empire had sewer and water that was in the metro, that was relatively rare. And a couple of townships that have had that. And they had urban-sized lots, very easy to show they were urban or suburban. You look at Baldwin, they had 7,000 people. Very easy to show they're urban or suburban, a lot of subdivisions. Mostly developed, same with Credit River, 5,000 people mostly developed, very simple. You don't have that. That is an initial drawback. From my perspective, how I think we would approach this case is we would look at it somewhat in a historical context. And I don't have a map here, but in my mind I can see it. You guys may not. But if you look at the cities that are in the metro area, and we go back, I'm going to take you back 70 years for a moment.
Talk to the back of the room.
Yeah, I'll take you back 70 years for a moment. Thank you. If you look at the west side of the Twin Cities, you've got Maple Grove, Plymouth, Medina, Minnetonka, Eden Prairie. You go back into the early 50s, and I don't think any of them were cities. You go into the late 50s, and they all were. And they were townships, all of those were townships at one point in time. They all incorporated because there was growth hitting them, just starting, they didn't want to be annexed. And they looked at it and said, we can run our city better than the city of Hopkins can run Minnetonka. Or Medina said, we can run our city better than Loretto could run us. Again, the areas that were the cities, where the train stops from way back when, where the train went through. You guys have one here. Farmington was one at one point in time, and that's where the cities grew up, and from there they start growing. Well, if you look at that whole west side of the cities, all of those townships incorporated. They did it on an election basis. At that point in time, in the early and mid 50s, you could do it, before my time, way before my time, but you can incorporate by an election of your people. They had a number of those incorporations. They had some starting on the south end down here, and the legislature, someone got the bright idea of saying, boy, we're getting a lot of cities, let's create the municipal board. The municipal board had exclusive jurisdiction over annexations and incorporations. And the idea was, we don't want all these cities all throughout the state. And it did put a brake on the idea of townships incorporating. I don't know the numbers. I know Burnsville incorporated, I thought, in '64. It was a township. Apple Valley, I think a little bit before then. Rosemont, I don't remember when, somewhere in that 50s, 60s time frame. But you had, if you're looking in that 50s, 60s area, or in the 60s, you had the row above you incorporating. Maybe 2 rows above you incorporating. And now you've had Empire, you have Lakeville. Lakeville came in It's after 1970, because Farmington annexed from Lakeville in 1970. So you've got the metro is moving out to the west, it's moving down to the south. And if you look at what is on your border, go across, east and west, and you're gonna have cities pretty well above you. You're the next layer. And that really is the case I think you would present, is you don't have to wait until, if you look at the way the Met Council does this, Met Council is not gonna give you sewer because you're a township, and maybe you don't want sewer. But you're not gonna get a whole lot of growth under the Met Council's, under their rules, if you will, because you are a township. You're never going to have subdivisions of any kind of significance here, number-wise, unless you have sewer. If you're ultimately going to urbanize, and I'm not one that sits here and tells you you need to urbanize, that's your decision. I'm telling you that what's going to happen and what we've seen in my 35 years, in our offices out in St. Michael, 35 years ago we had no stoplights. Now we've got several of them in town, 4-lane road. It's busy as all heck. The whole area has grown. All of the cities around have grown. It's going to happen. It's just a question of when and a question of who. Is it going to grow with Farmington expanding out, with Lakeville expanding out, or are the next row of townships going to incorporate? That's the question. Eventually, the land will get valuable enough, someone will sewer it. And it's a question that when they do, they're not going to come to Castle Rock and say, sewer it for me. You guys don't have the authority under the Met Council to get sewer and water without some special, I don't know of a township they've done it for starting new. Empire had it in the 70s or 80s. I don't remember when they first got it. Shortly after that, Met Council said no more. They were one of the last ones in the sewer club, if you want to call it that. So at some point in time, the land's going to get valuable enough, and you're going to have the property owners going to the nearest city to say, can I get utilities? City's going to say, yes, got to annex it. And that will be how your township develops. And for some of our townships, that works out fine for them. They don't want to become a city. They want to stay a township. They'll ride it out as long as they can. And if the land develops in the city, which they look at it and say, we know it's coming, we know we can't stop it. It's a issue of the metro coming out, the demand for the land being there. Excuse me. Their view is, we want to manage our township as long as we can, and when it gets to that point that it no longer is feasible, we'll deal with it then. Others are saying we want to preserve what we have. We think we can manage it better for what our people want, rather than what maybe the city of Farmington or one of the other neighboring cities wants. That's for you guys to decide. If you did decide to incorporate, what would that process be? It starts with a petition. You file a petition with the Office of Administrative Hearings, now Court of Administrative Hearings. That petition is a petition saying we want to incorporate, you ask for a hearing, which they have to have, and you have to give 30 days notice to all of the surrounding municipalities, cities or towns. Anyone who abuts you, even on a corner, we give them a notice. They have 30 days to basically consider what they want to do with that before you can actually file your petition. And that was put in the law many years ago by the cities because they didn't want townships incorporating without them knowing about it. So basically, the law requires you to notify all your neighbors, and it is from, I'm going to use a Star Trek analogy, for those of you who are Star Trek fans, you are lowering your shields when you incorporate. Yeah, you get to fire your phasers because it's an offensive move saying, hey, we want to become a city. Once you're a city, it's very difficult for anyone to annex you, but to do that, you drop all your shields because you are saying we are urban or suburban. And that is the same standard for annexation. So take our Bemidji case, for instance. Bemidji is saying this area is urban or suburban. We're saying this area is urban or suburban. So then it becomes a fight of who can better serve it. Can the city better serve it, or can the township serve it? And if the township can better serve it as the city of Northern, in that particular case, then we'll get incorporated. If the city can better serve it, then that area would get annexed into the city. So that's your fight when you decide we're going to incorporate. It is not for the faint of heart normally, and it's not for someone who says, well, let's just dip our toe in it. You are jumping in head first and you're not coming back out until you're either annexed or incorporated. It's gonna be one of the two, if somebody chooses to fight you. Most of our incorporations have not been fought over. The ones that I've been involved in, Forest Lake, and I've mentioned all the others, Forest Lake is the other one, that was Forest Lake Township versus Forest Lake City. They did not get incorporated. That was 2000. I was second chairing that with the attorney for the township. And I thought it was, up until Baldwin's case, I thought it was the best incorporation case I had seen. The problem was our people, our population were split, at least in my view. So as part of this annexation incorporation hearing, if you ended up with a contested case, the judge holds a public hearing. Well, with any incorporation, the judge holds a public hearing, and they want to hear from the public. The judge is going to hear from the people coming up. We kept a tally, and it was, my recollection is 27 to 26, and I don't remember which way, of city people and township people who, township residents who said we either want to be annexed or we don't want to be annexed. So our people were split. The city had none of the things that indicated good government. They had a much higher tax rate. They had a worse bond rating than we had. Township had an industrial park. Township had sewer. Township had water. Township had just better operations than the city did all the way around. Administrative law judge annexed the entire township into the city. Why? I don't have a... I have heard...
So that's a con.
What's that?
That's a con.
That's a con.
Yeah.
Yes. I have heard an explanation for it. It's a political explanation. I don't know if it's valid or not. On a case, from a case standpoint, that one should have been incorporated in my view. The others, St. Augusta, tried that case probably a month before the Forest Lake case. That one, the judge split the baby. That was actually the first case handled by OAH. And the judge took about 8 square miles out and gave it to St. Cloud, which contested it, fought us, and incorporated about 30 square miles. There was an slightly oversized township, and St. Augusta persists today. All of the others after that we've been involved in have not been heavily contested. Now that was not contested. Rice Lake was not contested. Credit River was not contested. Baldwin was. Baldwin, in my opinion, was ineffectually contested by the city of Princeton. They just didn't put on a good case. Could they have made a good case? I don't think so. Their tax rate was more than 3 times higher than ours. None of their stuff worked out right. They had a mutiny on their fire department. Literally, the fire department, 20 some of their fire department personnel sent a letter to the mayor, basically saying it's either the chief or us. You pick. And I mean, it was ugly. They had all kinds of problems. They just did not put on a good case. I think they would have lost even with a good case. They just didn't have the facts on their side. Judge incorporated the township in whole. Other than the St. Augusta split, all of our other townships got incorporated in whole. The question for you is going to be, one, do you want to be a city? You lose the annual meeting, you lose the levy being determined by your electors, it's all done by the city council. And 2, if you do want to be a city, is anyone going to fight you? Now you've got the orderly annexation agreement with the city of Farmington, which gives you 5 more years grace period, where that's an enforceable orderly annexation agreement, it's a contract. That agreement says that Farmington will not, in fact, it might even say they're going to support your incorporation, but they're not going to oppose you. That will require them to sit on the sidelines. Once that expires, they can come out after you as a township, but not until, yes.
So they are already not honoring that orderly annexation agreement.
In what part are they not honoring?
The part of rezoning or...
The comp plan, they've changed the comp.
They've changed the comp plan.
Yeah.
So my question is, what happens if they don't honor this part of it?
Good question. So I'm going to take you back just a little bit of history. In 1972, the city of St. Cloud entered into an orderly annexation agreement with St. Augusta. That agreement said St. Cloud won't oppose their annexation, won't oppose their incorporation. If the township agrees to annex certain lands, and the township said, fine, no problem, we get to the hearing, St. Cloud violates it. And they come out and they say, that's unenforceable. There was a case from La Crescent Township case versus City of La Crescent from 1993, which said legislature preempted this. Legislature gives cities the right to oppose an incorporation or to try and annex, and basically they don't have to abide by that. Well, that got the legislature's attention in 2001, 2002. We lobbied the legislature. We got the law changed to specifically say orderly annexation agreements are enforceable contracts. So they are enforceable. The question is, do you want to enforce it? So if you wanted to sue the city, that's sue them in court, to enforce that agreement, you should be able to. I don't know the specifics of what Farmington's done, but you should be able to do so if that agreement said they couldn't zone it a certain way and they did, you should be able to prevent that or reverse that. I don't know if you want to fight that fight. That's an issue. In terms of what does this mean in terms of an incorporation, if you guys were to incorporate and they were to challenge you, we would bring a motion in front of the Court of Administrative Hearings, basically saying they have no right to intervene and challenge us, dismiss them as a party, and do not let them proceed. And I think that is how the court would rule. That specific statute, literally, we drafted it. I drafted it on my computer. They changed it a little bit at the legislature. I didn't like the way they did it. I wrote it stronger. They weakened it a little. But it will be enforceable as far as we know. No cases have been brought forward on that one yet. No one's had to. But it's very clear what it says. It's an enforceable contract. So I think as long as that contract's enforced, I think you guys are good. Farmington, I do not expect to come after you. And then you'd have to look around you and see who else. And if I remember right, you don't have another city that abuts you.
Just Empire.
Empire, yes, you do. Sorry, Empire. You'd want to talk with Empire Township. Their growth appears to be more in the north of their township, coming down from the Apple Valley side. That's where their mining is playing out. I don't know their city council at this point. But the city council, when I was there, town board and city council were very much we're our own entity and we're not going to bother anybody else. Could that have changed? Maybe, but you don't want to talk.
So, do you have any, I got some questions, but I want to just,
Sure.
beat
No,
them over anybody.
go right
Is that
ahead.
okay? So, like ahead of, a petition or starting that 30-day clock, you said you have to show, your urban or suburban and, the 3 steps. So what should a township that wants to be successful in a petition do ahead of time to lay the groundwork for being successful?
Very good question. You got part of that. First and foremost is planning and zoning. Planning and zoning. When you are a township, in most counties, Dakota is different. Dakota abolished their zoning 1980, I think, 79. So most counties have county zoning, and townships don't do zoning. Some do, but the vast majority don't. Once you're a city, county has no zoning control. It's entirely city. You have to have your own. So you'd have your own plan, your own zoning and subdivision, which you probably already do. You do not need a police force. You may need a contract with the sheriff. That depends, but it varies from county to county. Some counties, sheriffs say, I'm going to respond to calls just as I did when you were a township. If you want patrol service, you have to contract, but that varies by county. Right now, your county attorney handles all of the misdemeanors, gross misdemeanors. So if someone gets a DUI, speeding ticket, county attorney does prosecution. That won't happen as a city, you will. So you will have to, typically you're going to contract with a private attorney. Ideally, if the county would do it by contract, some counties do. That's your cheapest bet. But that's going to be, I can't give you a quote, but for your size, do you have any bars here?
One?
okay? Because that's what generates, the bars generate the DUIs, that's just the way it is. You're probably looking at 15,000 a year, is my guess.
What's a bar?
A bar,
Restaurant.
Oh, like, oh, I love,
Yeah.
like wine and beer. I thought bar like law.
No, yeah, different, yeah, two different kind of bars. So those are the things you need to at least look at. Planning and zoning is by far the biggest. Yes.
What about like the recent incidences where people were running from the cops and were caught here?
So the sheriff's department will generally, most sheriffs, I can't tell you about Dakota County, but Dakota County's been very good. My experience with them has been good. I'd be really surprised if they said, we're not gonna answer any calls at all in your township.
Okay.
They will still usually come in for calls for service. If not, you'd have to have a contract. We haven't had any of our sheriffs yet who have said, you have to contract with us. We've had some of our townships that had contracts before they incorporated and kept them, and some that after incorporation got contracts because they wanted a higher level service. But that's something you check with your sheriff. Other than that, you're going to need ordinances, typically the typical ordinance you see for a city. You don't have sewer, you don't have water, you're really not going to have any of those types of
You don't have
issues.
to show that you're more suburban or urbanized and be more
So the statute,
favorable to growth, I guess.
statute is that you have to show that you are urban or suburban or about to become so. And most of the annexations that have occurred on the basis of about to become so. So that is a standard we usually use. And I think that's really what you would make your case on, is you are the next level down, you're already getting, I thought it was data centers, inquiries, a fair amount of development that is gonna come in that orderly annexation area, which, by the way, that would, under the terms of your agreement, that's gonna go to Farmington. When you file your incorporation, you're gonna ask the judge to annex that to Farmington. So you're, in terms of how we would present the case, it's not that we have all this growth, and it's not that we are gonna open the doors wide open. It is that we know that it is coming, we want to
We
prepare.
want to be the ones that prepare for it.
Yes, yes. And I think you can make a decent case on the geography and on the history, because that is what has happened with almost all of the other now cities. When they saw enough growth coming, they went in and incorporated.
I talked to Joe yesterday, the sheriff, and if we were to become a city, he said it will make absolutely no difference to them. He said whether you are a city or a township, it makes no difference to the sheriff's department, the service we would provide you. The only, we've talked about what Empire did, and that was Empire's decision to hire on their own officer. So that was their decision. So we're not going to be forced into any additional expenses in that. One of the questions I have is, and I think Eureka is trying to do this right now, what stops us, let's say we decide that we don't want to incorporate and become a city. Because, we always talk about this, that, we want to remain a small farming community and that's what our goal is. And then we're saying, well, that's what we want to do, but then we want to become a city. So we're kind of talking both sides. What would stop us, or why would trying to block Farmington out? In other words, what if we were to put in some developments of home sites, and then that would then literally block Farmington from trying to, because they can't jump over property, correct?
They can. They absolutely can.
Okay.
Yeah, so, in fact, that's what they were trying to do before. If you look at Empire, they just went, I don't remember, it was 8 squares, I thought, in Empire. I don't remember how some of it was around the city, but they went up like 6 squares, I think the whole length up, and then bled 2 into here. They can jump over any kind of development. It's hard to service that with sewer and water. If you put a bunch of 2-acre subdivisions around the city, they're not going to be able to special assess those properties for the full cost of sewer and water. It's going to probably be $100,000 a lot on a 2-acre lot. You can't show that 2-acre lot is worth $100,000 more. And the limit of your assessment is how much you increase it in value by giving it the benefit of whatever the facility is, sewer or water. So that's what makes it hard. The cities don't have the money to bypass, a quarter mile or a half mile subdivisions that they cannot assess. Because someone's got to pay for that pipe. So that's a practical issue, not a legal issue. Legally, they can come out and annex it.
But it would be difficult if you had the right development.
It would be difficult to serve it, but from an annexation perspective, can they get a judge to look at that and say over time they'll get sewer and water lines out there? Yeah, they would. So it's not going to be the block you think it is.
Okay.
I just was going to say, you brought up Eureka.
She's on the board,
I'm on the committee.
yeah.
I'm on the committee, so I can speak. And I'm on the planning commission. I talked to the chair of the planning commission of Eureka. They already have a city administrative corporation instead of like Bolton and Mank as a city planner, whatever we do. They've already hired a clerk. She works 40 hours a week, gets benefits, and she said they are looking towards going a city. If Eureka becomes a city before we do, that means we're the only land with annexation. The city of Farmington will truly go after us.
Or Eureka.
Eureka could too, or Empire as well, even though Empire's saying they're not going to now.
If they come, but if
Or I
Eureka
should
becomes
say,
a
and
city,
Eureka, from the west.
if Eureka becomes a city before we do,
Right.
we'd be the only one left with land that's the city of Farmington would want to annex.
My guess is Eureka's coming this way.
Maybe. Anyway, my guess also is, I have a question. With the annexation agreement, if the city of Farmington is not abiding by it now, could they just say, we're going to annex all the way to County Road 86, which is the end of our Castle Rock Township? Could they do that?
So they could always try, but my read of that agreement, and I think this is what I call a slam dunk,
Yeah.
is that the Court of Administrative Hearings, can take me a year to get that right, just so used to Office of Administrative Hearings, they would not allow them to join, because it would be in direct violation of that contract, and the law says the court has to enforce it.
Okay.
So the answer, in my view, is a hard no. You have a 5-year window where they are not gonna be able to touch you. After that 5-year window, open season. So if you are looking at incorporation, you're in the sweet spot, and it's not gonna get better than what you have it here. You're gonna wanna file probably sometime in 2028 at the latest. It takes about a year to get a decision on incorporation. That would get you a decision somewhere in 2029. I don't think you want to tempt fate and get too close to that deadline. And one of the other things we haven't talked about, but that you really need to hear, is the cost. The cost difference between an uncontested case and a contested case, it's every bit of double. And it depends on who's contesting you. So in an uncontested case, I am guessing you're going to probably see a cost of maybe $130,000, $140,000 in total. I don't know for sure, give or take, it could go either way. I'd have to look and see what we did. That would be really Empire. I'd have to look and see what it costs for Empire. That's the last uncontested one we've had. I can tell you that the contested ones easily run twice that. So if you're thinking of, from a cost perspective, can we afford it? If you can't afford it now, you're never going to be able to afford it, because the contested one is just going to be crazy.
Just out of curiosity, for the townships that have failed to become a city, how much did they spend on it before they were shut down?
The only one that we've done that has not made it, and we were second chairing on, was Forest Lake. And I don't know, that's back 1999, 2000, and I don't remember the numbers. And I don't think I ever saw them all, because there was 2 of us attorneys on it. I can't really tell you, I don't know. I can tell you that, I should know the number. We probably had, I'm betting that, again, don't quote me on it, I'm just giving you an estimate, but I'm betting that Baldwin, which was contested by Princeton, but not fully contested, they, like I say, they just did not do a really good job. I'm betting the township probably spent close to 200 on that, be my guess. And in about 3 months, 4 months, Northern can tell you what they'll have spent. Because they'll be through all of the casework, it'll be in front of the judge at that point, it'll be up for the judge to decide at that point, all the grading will be done, all the costs will be. But we're in the thick of it, and I can't tell you what that number's gonna be.
So can a township contest it? So right now we have the agreement with Farmington, they cannot contest us.
Yeah.
But could Eureka or Hampton Township contest it?
Anybody can become a party. We had an individual contest it in St. Augusta. It was crazy, but it happened. It rarely happens because when you file your petition, and here's one of the reasons why these costs get so high, you have to pay the administrative law judge's expenses. And those are, I want to say they're at about $270 an hour, thereabouts. They're probably going to be, in an uncontested case, their fees are probably going to be in the $25,000 range, maybe $30,000. When we get another party in, the judge has the ability to split it in half. Doesn't mean it's going to. And when an individual comes in, I don't know if a judge is going to say you get half of that $50,000 bill in a contested case. Who knows? That's why individuals aren't going to really do this, because if they join in against any petition, they're on the hook for some portion, potentially half of the fees.
Okay. That answers, I was thinking of if we had a property owner right next to the OAA out there, and they wanted to contest it, but they're gonna have fees too to do that.
They would. And that is exactly the situation we had in, this is ironic, in St. Augusta, we had a property owner who had land at State Highway 15, Interstate 94, thought that the city was telling them, we're gonna get your services first. That was 25 years ago, they still don't have sewer and water. So, you know, even the best laid plans don't always work, but that doesn't mean someone's gonna see that. I don't know how much this guy spent, but he hired his own attorney, and he also got annexed in, but he's got no services.
So you had mentioned like a 2028 date, right? Was that just kind of like a get going before then, or don't get going after then, or is that
Yeah.
legitimately what you see as like?
Don't get going after that.
Okay.
That's what I'm telling you.
So like if today we, you know, I know we're not gonna apply that, but say everyone's all gung ho, yep, let's do this. Like what, realistically, when does that process to when you file the petition, I mean, is that a year down the road? And what do we have to do to actually show, if we have to, that we can better manage the land of the township than the city? Like what steps?
So first you'd want to figure out who can contest you. And it sounds like it's really only, realistically speaking, it probably would only be Empire. If Empire doesn't, if another city doesn't come in, you don't have the issue of, can we better manage it? You typically don't, and here's the thought. The judge decides the case on the evidence that's before the judge. So if there's no city presenting evidence, yours is going to be the only evidence in. So the judge doesn't have a basis to conclude somebody else can better serve it.
Gotcha.
So it is a much easier case from that regard. So that's why I'm saying, yeah, 2028, because you don't want Farmington coming in. What you need to do to prepare, money is going to be your biggest issue. It's going to be expensive. Educating your public is going to be the next biggest issue. And by educating, I mean talking with them, not necessarily persuading them, but you need to hear from your people, what do they want to do. You're going to have some people who are very vocal on either side. The real question is, what's everybody else think? You know, we're going to have our vocal ones, we know, if you don't have your people behind you, you're going to have a hard time getting the judge to incorporate you. And that's the lesson in my mind of Forest Lake. You go in with a divided population, you got problems. Judge wants to see everyone, not every single person, but a judge wants to see this is what the community wants to do. And that's your job to be able to present that to the community in a way that makes sense to them.
And the areas already designated in the OAA go to Farmington, so those residents are gone.
No matter what, if you file an incorporation petition, that will get annexed. And there's no way you can save them, you can call it that. They are where they are, and they're gonna go into Farmington.
How many households did you figure that is?
I don't know households, but there's 61 tax parcels. It's like almost all of our commercial.
That would all become part of Farmington.
Yep. So it's Happy Harry's and Castle Rock Bank and B&B Transformer and.
They have no choice.
They have no choice.
Yeah. I believe if I remember your agreement, it says that.
Yeah.
It does.
So I mean, and that's the easiest tax base we have. They're all on state highways. We provide like no service and their commercial tax capacity.
They absolutely will be annexed.
I can't afford, is that ours? Is that Farmington? Can't afford?
That's Farmington.
Farmington.
Well, it's part, that's the commercial.
OAA.
Is that the commercial on the west side of Gulf you're talking about? Two of them are ours.
Question. So we looked at a PowerPoint presentation about a year ago. I think most of the board members did. And it showed Empire and Credit River and some other communities. Bayport, I think, was part of that. And, you know, we looked at them, and I think Empire was the lowest of any of the townships with a $1.6 million operating budget, you know, for the year. Okay? We're not even close into that neck of the woods. Does that factor into the judge that, you know, they don't have a whole lot of money down there in Castle Rock, so will he look at that and say, how are they gonna take on all these additional expenses then?
Very good question. So when we were doing the Baldwin Incorporation, the mayor of Princeton talked to the chairman of Baldwin Township and said, you guys are gonna, becoming a city is very expensive in terms of running it. You're gonna have to hire a whole bunch more people and you gotta offer all these services. And the chairman asked us, and we said, no, you don't. You do not have to do that. They didn't hire anybody new. They may have hired one part-time office staff, I think, but that's because they hired a new clerk. Their old clerk used to do everything, and they split those jobs, if I recall it correctly. So they really have not increased their payroll other than a part-time office person. That's it.
I'm not worried about necessarily increasing payroll.
Yep.
I'm more worried about, okay, now we have to pay, you know, our attorney's bills, you know, that come in for the criminal prosecution.
Sure.
It sounds like the county right now does work for us on our wetlands. If we take over, we have to pay for those services to be done.
Possibly, but those you usually pass through to the landowners. So if you've got somebody who's applying for a subdivision and they come through with a application for a subdivision, they have to get a wetland delineation, you probably have your engineer on that tech panel at that point in the county. I could be wrong on this, it goes differently with different counties. Your engineer is gonna bill that to you guys, you're gonna bill it back to that developer.
Well, hold on here. Mike, maybe you can comment on that. We talked about that one day. Didn't you say there is a service the county provides us?
Everything in the pink and the green, so the only part of planning and zoning that Dakota County Board still has authority on, planning and zoning, is the pink and the green of the townships.
Shoreland.
The shoreland and floodplains. And like Empire, they had to create their own shoreland and floodplain ordinances. And then as the attorney said that, yes, if there's work that's done or what the order, so it's a matter of the prep work to prepare for it. You need to create your own ordinance and then you need to enforce your own ordinance. And then if there's any development, it would be the pass-through that way. So my understanding, Mike, was that Empire just created all that stuff there. I know that was one of their surprises, was they thought, they're like, oh, we have to do the pink area.
Yeah.
They create their planner, they created the ordinance, but I don't know if the cost once that was done.
That isn't too hard because you pretty much have to adopt the DNR's model ordinance. The
Yeah.
DNR says whatever you adopt has to be consistent with the DNR's model. Now, you can get exemptions from that, but you have to apply to the DNR with your, say, this is what we want to adopt, can you let us vary X, Y, and Z? They usually don't. So you're probably going to adopt something pretty similar to what everyone else has.
Well, it's like it's a one-time fee.
Yeah.
One time to create
one-time.
ordinances.
Okay.
Correct.
Going back to your shields down analogy.
Yes.
So does that risk get mitigated then if we have a no contest and even if you're unsuccessful, is it you will be gobbled up or the status quo remains or?
Depends on what your city, so if your city doesn't, if your city doesn't try to annex you, the judge is not going to annex you anywhere else. In fact, that was Princeton's situation. They asked the judge to annex, like, I think it was maybe 15 squares of the township.
Half of it or something, right?
Yeah, but they never filed an annexation petition. And we were able to show the judge that the judge had no authority to annex without a petition in front of him. So the judge didn't even have to consider that. And the judge found that we were urban or suburban, and we had all the infrastructure we needed to government, if you will, we needed to take care of the area. So if nobody else opposes you and says, nobody else files an annexation petition, the judge's choice is to incorporate you, incorporate part of you, or deny it entirely.
So if there's nobody contesting, those are still the three options that can, even if we're the only ones there, can still be one of the.
Yes, we still have to prove our case, and when we do these, we prove our case. Yours is going to be a challenging one, no question. I mean, it's going to, in our view, we're going to have to be able to convince the court that what has happened to the other townships, you're on the front end of that, you are about to become urban or suburban. That's really going to be your case. And whether, I should give you one other bit about the judges. We have been blessed with we had the municipal board up till 2000. The municipal board got pulled by the legislature and it went to the Office of Administrative Hearings. And they have maybe a dozen judges there, none of whom knew anything about, they didn't know what townships were. They were all metro area based. They don't know townships, it's just how it is. They used to rotate different judges. We would get a different judge for every case. We would have no predictability. So we could not tell you how this judge is going to rule or what they think or anything. And we just have to wait and see who we drew. That changed about 8 years ago. And they started, I want to say in about 2016, 2017, somewhere thereabouts. They have appointed one judge who has heard all annexation and incorporation cases. She is great. She's exactly what you want a judge to be. Show me the facts, prove your case, I'm going to follow the law. That makes it very predictable for us. We can tell you whether you've got a good case, we can tell you what the law the judge is going to apply, and we have to guess what someone who's opposing you is going to do. We try and analyze their case and we advise you. That changed this year, and I'm not sure why, but internally, OAH is going back to we're going to assign it to a different judge. So we have a judge right now, and she is hearing the Northern Township case, who has heard these cases before. She gets all the concepts. She's familiar with it. It's an easy case for us to present. Odds are you're not going to get that judge. Maybe you would, maybe you won't. I think you won't, because they need to train more. If they're going to do this, they need to train more judges in them. The Northern case is the most complicated one in 25 years. That's probably why they assigned it to her, because she's got experience. Yours is not going to be
So we get the
complicated.
newbie.
Pardon me?
So we can get the newbie.
You're going to get the newbie. You're going to get the trainee, and maybe the judge is going to be good, maybe they're not. The problem is we're not going to know how that judge reacts to the evidence. We have some idea of what evidence flies in front of this judge.
So you said this one you would expect to be challenging, ours, if we did it?
Yeah, I think it's a tougher case than we've seen with any of the others. You're just in the large part of it is you don't have the population base that any of the others who have incorporated have. Your population is low.
So, challenging, less confidence?
Yes.
Yeah.
So two issues. Less confidence in the case itself, because we're really going to be trying a new theory, and less confidence because we're probably going to have a judge that we don't have a feel for how that judge is going to see the evidence.
Fair.
So if we were to proceed forward, is there a point where, let's say once you're on board, right? We've agreed that, okay, you're going to do this. Is there a point when you say, okay, now we're going to do our homework, we're going to do our research, and then you would come back to us and say, you know what, we think you got a 30% chance of making it. You guys might want to rethink this. You got a 70% chance of making it, And again, we're big boys and girls, we can make our own decisions at that point. But would you do that? Would you kind of, once you get on board, if you think we got a losing battle, I'm hoping you would bring that to our attention and say, folks, I think you're gonna spend a boatload of money and this isn't gonna work out for you. Plus, my understanding is if we go for it and we lose, we've opened up the door, it's gonna make it worse for us.
If nobody challenges you, not necessarily, because if the judge doesn't incorporate you, then the judge would have found you're not, likely would find you're not urban or suburban, or about to become so. Same annexation standard.
So let me ask a question. Let's say we do this in 2028.
Yep.
We go to court in 2029 and we fail, all right, just hypothetically. Then in 2030, Farmington comes along and says, hey, they thought they were urban, you know, last year they went to court on this and they failed.
Yep.
So it's our chance to move now, it's 2030.
Sure.
They could use that to say, well, they tried to incorporate, they wanted to become a city, we can just annex them in and make it all happen for them.
I think what we would do is, your argument would be, but the court ruled that we're not urban or suburban, which trumps your idea that, you know, your desire to be urban or suburban. We're gonna say, yeah, we thought we were urban or suburban too, but the court didn't think so. Farmington's basically bringing the same case we brought, or something similar. Not that much has changed in a year.
Sure. Okay, makes sense.
And I honestly, I don't know that Farmington is gonna come in, would they come back right after you lost and try a big annexation? Probably not. They would probably nibble around the edges more. They're gonna sweeten the pot potentially for someone to extend sewer and water out. You petition in, we'll give you tax increment financing, whatever it may be, to help extend the water and sewer, and they annex them. You're gonna see more of that. You'll probably see them knock on their door for an orderly annexation agreement, which you don't have to agree to. I can almost assure you they would not put in that same clause that's in yours now, saying they will not contest incorporation. That's unusual. You're very fortunate you have it.
With that being said, Mike, since we have that agreement with Farmington, it gives us a lot better chance that they can't come after us, right?
Currently, correct, for this 5-year period. I think they cannot oppose this.
And after 2030?
They have the same rights as any other city that abuts you does. They can come in and try to annex you at any time they want. They still have to go through a hearing to annex if the landowners aren't petitioning to go in.
Right. And if we come back and do it at that time, they're gonna fight us all the way.
Our view is you should assume that it doesn't always happen, but you don't want to spend a lot of money toward this and then be surprised, oh, they're fighting us. You should go into this with the idea of the worst case scenario, because it does often happen. And they are fully surrounded on 3 sides now. I don't know how much land they've got developed and how much left to develop, but their only way is south here or a little bit. I thought they had a mile in, maybe not, in next to Eureka.
Yes.
I don't remember how much.
I want to see a road,
Back to your question, you know, would we go back and do our research and tell you what the odds are? I don't know that we're going to know anymore. I don't think that any information is going to change this. I mean, I hate to say it this way, but this is just how it really is. The most important thing, the most important evidence we have is the aerial photo of your township. Because this is a, I know it when I see it kind of thing. Everyone knows what subdivisions look like, everyone knows what dense populations look like, and when you don't see it, it looks more rural, and when you do see it, it looks more urban or suburban. So I don't think research is going to change that. Now, that said, when we work on a case, as you go through that case, you start to connect the dots. We can connect this to this. We have a gap here, how are we going to take care of that? So you make your case a little bit better a lot of times. Sometimes you conclude, we're not going to fill that gap, that's going to be a problem. But we usually know about the gaps going in. The cases don't get markedly different halfway through it or 3/4 of the way through it than they are at the beginning. And so from a perspective, are we ever going to be able to say, here's what your percentages of winning? I don't think so, because I can't point to another one like this. That's
It's a coin flip.
Pardon me?
It's a coin flip.
Yeah. You know, when we had Empire, that was very easy for us, because they had sewer, they had water, they were St. Augustus size. They weren't too far off of what Now Then was, they weren't too far off of what Rice Lake was, and we could point to all those and say, they all got incorporated, we think you're gonna. Yours is gonna be a little different. There was a time back in the early 2000s where there was a thought, it's gonna be difficult, maybe in the mid-90s, it's gonna be difficult to incorporate without sewer and water. That's been done. Now Then still doesn't have sewer and water. Grant Township, the city of Grant, does not have sewer and water. I don't know if Scandia does, you guys may know, I'm not sure if they do. Credit River still doesn't. So it's not a requirement, it helps, but it's not a requirement. Your biggest issue, I think, is going to be, and I'm not sure how we would overcome this, what we would want to present is some version of how you would like your comprehensive plan to be. Where do you want your commercial area to be? Do you want any housing, and if so, where would it go? I don't know that you can get that through Met Council without sewer. That's the issue. You're kind of in that catch-22. We're not a city, we can't have sewer, and we want to be able to grow, but we can't show growth because Met Council won't approve a plan that lets you grow without sewer. Credit River got around that because they worked with Savage, I think it was, which was north of them, where they had a sewer line on the border, and Savage in some way agreed, I don't remember if it was a formal agreement or yeah, we're okay with this, that they would extend that sewer, that the Credit River could connect to their sewer. That would become a Metropolitan Council sewer main, which would have some favorable implications for Savage, so Savage was okay with it. So when Credit River is ready, they can extend the sewer that way. And I think that allowed the Met Council to show in their comp plan a different development scenario, but don't quote me on that.
So let's say that between now and 2028, so we got 3 years, and I know that that's not very long for what I'm talking about. But let's say we were actually to add in a few more developments. We put developments in 2.5 acre, 3 acre lots, 10 of them in an area. If we were to do a few more of those, at least get them planned out and on the books, would that help our case that we're becoming urban, or are we just spinning our wheels?
It would help a little, but not a lot. I mean, you're not going to win this on we are suburban. It's we are about to become so. Growth does help, but it depends on how many houses. And your bigger issue, I think the bigger issue is not how many houses are we going to have in the next 6 years. The bigger issue is look what's happening all around us. It's coming, and we need to be able to prepare for it. We need to be able to plan for it. One of the big issues that we always bring up in our corporations is if our borders aren't solid, if they're porous, we can lose properties from annexation. We can't plan because we can never plan to put a sewer in, and all of a sudden, 3 years from now, before we get the sewer in, 120 acres get annexed out. You can't plan it.
Can I just speak up as part of the city committee? I would just like to say on behalf of what you're talking about, we do have a pipe right next to our development, right on the north side. There is a city pipe there, so does that help our
Farmington.
case? Yes,
That
city
would.
pipe.
That would.
Yes,
Now
there's a
we
city pipe waiting for us right there.
We would want to, now when you say next to your development, I know you have an orderly annexation area. Is it still in the city and not in your orderly annexation areas? That orderly annexation area is going to become Farmington.
It's in, I think it's in the OA.
Well, it's part of the OAA.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's
that's
still, that's not that
that's the
far
way
away.
Credit River was, same
Yeah.
thing, that's what the mayor was telling us. He said they were sitting right there, and they're sitting right here.
And that's something that we would, part of your preparation would be, go talk to Farmington and say, hey, if we wanted sewer, how are we going to work this out? Now, what Farmington may want to know, which might help them. So let me ask you, I got to ask you this. So if I'm remembering it right, Farmington dumps into the Empire plant, which is run by the Met Council. Okay. So there is something out there, I'm not as familiar with it as my partner is. Once a sewer pipe crosses jurisdictions, I believe it becomes a Met Council interceptor, and they buy it from Farmington. And this is why Savage was interested, because when that happens, Savage gets paid for their pipe. And they don't have to maintain it anymore, it becomes by council pipe. I don't know if that's gonna be the case with the Farmington / Castle Rock pipe. It's worth looking into. That might be the carrot that gets Farmington to say, okay, there's something in it for us.
Glad I brought up the pipe.
But even if we brought that sewer through the neighborhoods that are right next to Farmington, Castle Rock's gonna incur the cost of putting it down on the streets.
Yes, and here is your problem, and we had an appraiser look at this for Baldwin's situation. You've got 2-acre lots, you're never gonna be able to afford to sewer those.
Right.
You just cannot do it, because unless you get a huge state grant, you're not gonna get that because you don't have environmental problems here that need to be solved. You're not gonna get it just because we want sewer. So your growth is gonna be driven by developers who come in, because they have access to sewer, they'll buy the land, they'll pay to extend the line out, and it's gotta make sense for them. Will they be here? Don't know, depends on what the price of the land is, depends on how far they have to extend the sewer, and you probably wanna have water from Farmington also to go with it.
So, just one other question, I don't know how this would affect becoming a city, but so right now, Farmington has the land that they're trying to build the data center on, and that is directly next to neighborhoods. I happen to live there. And that, could Farmington, without our permission, annex our home, the neighborhood that we live in? Could they come in there and annex?
Not right now, but after 2030, they could.
They could come in and annex it, even though all the homeowners do not want to become involved.
Yes, but they'd have to go through a hearing. They'd have to petition the Court of Administrative Hearings and go through this whole hearing process we're talking
And
about.
a judge might say, these people are fine, leave them alone.
Could be. And the question is going to be, are you urban or suburban, or about to become so? That's going to be the big issue. Or if you're in need of municipal services, that goes to that public health, safety, and welfare issue.
Yes.
So if the data center tries the wells, they're gonna say, we're gonna provide water.
Yeah.
Conceivable.
Right, you know what I mean, hypothetically.
Okay, well, so here'd be the question, why would they put in a data center in Farmington and let them put a well in? That'd be crazy. Would they do that? Are they talking that?
That's what they're
Say
gonna
that
do.
again.
I think they are. I think you they are.
So-
Are they or no?
Yes.
They're planning on putting a well, I believe, right on the data center site.
The city
Yeah.
of Farmington has guaranteed
Which would
the
be
water
right
supply
next
to
to
the
it.
data center from the city's water supply.
Okay,
The domestic water
that's-
supply,
yeah.
I've seen the contract.
So that works. That's what I'm thinking most cities would do. I wouldn't think they would let the data center drill its own well and
Yeah,
pump
they-
that.
I
Excuse
think
me,
the
they
DNR would
want-
approve it because of the zone of depression and all the issues that would happen hydrologically. Right now, the city has signed a contract guaranteeing more water than the entire city uses to that data center. And they have, I've seen it.
Well, that is better than letting the data center drill the well and have unrestricted
Right,
use.
right. It'd be a city well, right? Is that what you're saying?
It's domestic water. They have guaranteed the water to the data center out of the domestic water supply for the city of Farmington.
Okay.
Positive on this, 100%.
I've got one little out in the weeds kind of hypothetical here. So in terms of, services you can provide, yada, yada. So right now, we contract for Farmington to cover about 1/3 of our fire protection area. Could they say, we're not gonna serve that, but if you want fire service, come on over here and, we'll take you, and that could be the way to, we're not gonna contest it, but we're not gonna give you fire service and kind of blow the things up through that.
That's possible. The only one that has ever done that is the city of Winona. They basically said, when they wanted to annex Winona Township fought it, and the city said, we're not gonna provide you fire service. I've only seen it done once. So could they do it? Yes. Is this something that I think is common? I think everyone realizes, most of our communities realize there's a line you don't cross, and public safety is that line. So,
One would think.
yeah, but it's been done, so it could be done.
So do you know, we have a higher density area down there called the Village of Castle Rock. I don't know, Norb, you probably know. How big do you figure the average lot is down there, an acre?
At the most.
Yeah, not even probably.
Okay, so they're really small lots, they're all on sewer, they're all on septic, they're all on wells.
Yeah.
And if we become a city, Could there be any more requirements on the city to say, hey, you've got this high-density area, you're gonna need to address it with a service?
I don't think so, and I want to give you the qualifications behind that. So I'm not aware of any statute that says you have to provide that service. If you had a wastewater treatment plant licensed by the MPCA, they can order you to serve it, but you don't have that.
Okay.
So I think the answer is no, but part of the problem with law is if you're asking for something that I don't know about and I've never seen, I can tell you, no, it's not out there and it might be there. I've just never, in my 35 years.
It could change next year.
And it can. I don't think that's out there because we know this other statute is there with the wastewater treatment plants and the MPCA's ability to order a city to serve. But without that, that comes through their license. You're not going to have a license with them. I'm not aware of anything that allows that to happen. And I really, from a political standpoint, that would require you to spend millions of dollars to put in place a plant, and there's just no way politically that's ever going to fly. You couldn't do it. Feasibly, you wouldn't have the money to do it.
The only last question I had, somebody asked me is, if we became a city, and let's just say we're a year into this and, you know, the residents all of a sudden realize this was a bad decision, can you go back to being a township if you wanted to?
Yeah,
I was asking.
No, good question, and now you're on a point that I know the answer to that. The answer is yes. I don't know the procedure. It's an election, it's a decertification election.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember how it's done. I want to say there's not even one in a decade where that happens. It has happened, I think, twice in my career that I'm aware of. They're way up north, or no one, you know, the population's leaving, dying or leaving, no one's coming back, and they realize we're better off being a township. I've given that advice to, one of my cities, no longer a city I represent, haven't represented in a long time, city of South Haven. They had a tax rate that was triple what the township was. Township has a lot of lakes. And my advice back then was you really should talk to the township about decertifying and going back to the township, because you've got really high taxes, you have to be audited every year. There are about 180 people. They had to have an audit done. They had a clerk that was full-time. And I'm looking at it going, go back to being a township, decertify, taxes are gonna go way down, your expenses are gonna go way down, they don't wanna do it, they're still a city. So there is a process. But the more likely event is your farmers in the south or in the east say, we want to go to that township. And they tried to detach, which again is another hearing in front of the Court of Administrative Hearings. That's been done before. 6 squares in the city of Rockville, out in Stearns County, detached and went to Main Prairie. So it can be done. But it can be done.
I just have one last question. And this was by a citizen. Can a community that is part of the city and is contiguous to Castle Rock Township, can they be annexed by us?
Good question. So that,
can communities that are part of the city, that are contiguous to our township, can they be annexed by us, if by petition by the citizens?
so as a township, you cannot annex. They can request to detach
Yes.
and go to the township, but that's again as a hearing. If you became a city, then you're now talking city to city, and that's a concurrent detachment annexation. It's possible, but it is property by property, meaning the property has to abut the city, the owner has to petition, and then you decide as the city of Castle Rock, do we want to do it or not?
Because we have people on the other side of Castle Rock that are not happy with the city of Farmington, with what has happened. And they have asked me to ask that question.
So the cost of doing it, first of all, those are maybe 2 of those a decade, 1 of those a decade, they're rare. There's no predictability. We don't know whether they're going to win or not. And they're still going to have to go to a hearing, they're going to have an attorney, they're going to have to pay the judge's fees, it's going to be very expensive. That's why it did work in Main Prairie, because they had 6 square miles, they all shared the fees, and they all had a pretty good case, because the main part of the city was 5 miles up, and they were down here, and the city really did nothing for them that wasn't being done when they were a township. So effectively, the answer, I think, is no. You're not gonna see people coming back out of Farmington here, and you're probably not gonna see you guys incorporating and doing a detachment annexation. Very unlikely.
Have you ever seen two townships go together and incorporate jointly?
My partner did that. I'm trying to think of which township it was. I don't remember. It was southwest Minnesota, small township. They had trouble getting their officers. It was a partial township, and it's a county board action that isn't done at the Court of Administrative Hearings. You go to the county board, there's a petition, there's statutory requirements, not hard to meet. I think the county board holds a public hearing, and the county board then votes it. And if the people are in favor of it, the county boards, from what we have seen, at least in that one, they didn't have a problem with it. It made sense. It was just too small of a remnant to get people to run and to run itself as a separate government.
So if we were, still contemplating doing this, and maybe we, decide that, yeah, we're gonna do it, but we're not gonna start until 2027, would there just be recommendations that you would have for us between now and whenever we make the decision, such as, like right now, we run on a really tight budget. There's not a nickel left and after we pay all the bills at pretty much the end of the year. So are there things you would suggest that we would start doing ahead of time, like start raising your taxes up a little bit, start getting a little extra money in the bank, or other things that we would do?
Your first thing that I would recommend is you would figure this out on the township level. Do you want to do it? And if so, why? And then you need to have a conversation with your public. That it all starts with your public. And then at your annual meeting, propose a budget that is going to increase that levy, that's going to put money aside for incorporation expenses, because you will have them. And I would plan that out and figure out how much do we need to levy for the next 2 or 3 years, or whatever it's going to be, 26, 27, really 2 years, before you start it, and let your people know this is what it's for, because they got to vote the levy, and you're going to need to make sure that they're fully educated on what this means, and does this make sense to them? And if so, hopefully they'd vote it, and if not, you got more work to do. Because without the money, you're not going to be able to do it. All of our, I shouldn't say all, most of our townships of your size run very lean. That is just who townships are. They are the most frugal government that's out there. I want to, I'm going to tell another story with it. But you got, if you're going to incorporate as a city, you have to plan. And that plan is going to mean you're going to have to levy for it. Some people are going to say, if we become a city, where our taxes are going to go way up. And I'm going to point you to St. Augusta. Their taxes were in 1999, before they incorporated, I think they were at 17. In 2000 they became 20, because they had some incorporation. We had to go through 2 hearings, not 1. That was a mess. Today their tax rate is still it's still 20 something, 20.5, I don't remember exactly what. 25 years later, they've kept it the same. Now they've had some growth in housing and some growth in tax base, which has helped, but they still run like a township. So you're really going to need to educate your people about what this means. It is a change of government. You guys are already a 5-member board, so that you're not going to have that transition. But you realistically, there is, I can't tell you, I can't quantify it for you, but there is a benefit from how lean we run. And when you're a township and you have to present a budget that your people vote on, there is more of a connection between your board and the people. As you get to be a city, you can lose that. St. Augusta has not. Credit River, for a little while, lost it. I don't know if you guys heard anything about Credit River, but they had a city administrator come in who was proposing $16 million worth of buildings, and we're going to build a public works building, build a new city hall, hire a bunch of people. Not what any of the city council members wanted, and they eventually righted that ship. That can happen. So as long as your people elect the same mindset of people, you're good. If you like people who think we're a city and we need to compete with everybody else, you're gonna lose your township identity. You're gonna lose your character. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Well, lots to think about.
Anybody else got anything?
I got a question for Mike Slavik. What's your opinion on all this?
Wow, did you feel your chair getting warm?
Well, here's where I am, Mike. You represent us and stuff like that. So if we're gonna change, how's the county and everything gonna stand behind us and everything?
Yeah, so I think one of the, I was at the time representing Empire so with redistricting and that, with the census, I don't represent Empire anymore. But the commissioner that took over a portion of Lakeville needed to get from Rosemont to Lakeville, and you can't, so they needed Empire to connect to be able to get 10,000 people out of Lakeville. So I had to give up Empire. So I was involved in the kind of the process in there. I would say that, in terms of, this has already been a sophisticated township in terms of planning and zoning, and you've been very thoughtful in what you've done, very much like what Empire has been in there. So I think that in many ways, you compare yourself to townships across the state, or that most of our townships are at a level that is a much higher level of governance than what you'd have there. So that does help you in there. I think it really becomes up at your discretion there. It's I think, as the attorney said, it's not as much of the slam dunk that you'd have with others on that part there. I think if someone would have asked me what township would become a city next, because I do get actually asked that pretty often, what township would become a city next in Dakota County, there's 12 left. I don't know if this would have been the first one I would have expected. That I think that there's a couple others either by population, or there's actually a couple townships that are that's literally surround a city. So we have a city with the same name of township, and some of those one I think are where you got 3 of that look like that probably fit up the criteria of where the city function within the township might make more sense in there. I do tell you though that, you've heard, those of you who've been, probably just you Pete, who've been here long enough, maybe BJ, when I go to the township meetings in the spring that we have, that the fact of the matter is that when it comes to your boundaries, it was not Farmington that was the reason why Empire went and started this conversation on annexation. It was actually Lakeville. Lakeville, which has a whole bunch of land, is way over there, just a little tip of, but it was Lakeville that was talking with Branchford Farms about annexing land. There was already an orderly annexation with Farmington, but it was Lakeville that this city of Empire was concerned about, and I think that that pressure was a lot more because Branchford Farms is right next to it, and what you were seeing, the housing developments continuing. It didn't matter that you still had a third of Lakeville sitting empty as farmland. They happen to have a housing development right next to Empire, and that's why they did that. And I think that's what's going to be happening. You're not going to have the pressure from the north. It's going to be your pressure from the west heading east. That's going to be there. That's the reason why when it gets to how legitimate, I understand that some of this is a discussion based on the factors with the golf course and the data center, but the reality is that after that, it could be something else. And they could, living when I was on city council in Hastings, there's that hopscotch where you have a development right kind of on the border, which is the township, but the landowner right next to it on the other side says, I'd like to go in and be part of the city of Hastings. And the city was able to just go and say, well, it wasn't that much, just do 600 feet of pipe, and they could get and service that development there. And that was how you can hopscotch an entire development with those homes. I think that's that example that it's not necessarily what you build on your border, it's the landowner on the other side. And that's where I would say, Norb, is just that, ultimately it becomes your decision, but I think the advice that I would say is, and you heard it from the attorney, is as much as it's the decision of the 5 policymakers, this really has to be a decision of the whole community. And because that's where you need to decide when are we going to say enough is enough of the pressure being put on us, and the other parts in there strategically you can do as policymakers, but it's you got to make sure that you have your community on the same page. And I don't know if you do yet. You have a lot of people who are here passionate today, but being able to find out, the real work is trying to figure out if the whole township feels the same way as the people who are as passionate in this room.
Here's what I hear. I kind of headed this up from the beginning. Everybody says taxes are gonna go up. But me living in this township as long as I have, I see them going up no matter what.
You see what?
See them going up no matter what.
Taxes going up.
Say Farmington would annexes or whatever. Our taxes are gonna go up, you know that, and I know that. If we do this, our taxes are gonna go up. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer that anybody's gonna sit in this room and say taxes aren't gonna go up if we don't do anything.
That's true. You know what I'd really like to see? Is there gonna be some kind of a cost plus analysis? Like, I've listened to everything tonight, but I haven't caught everything. Like pro, con, cost plus, benefit. I'd sure like to see that.
Regarding taxes going up, 2 years ago, we had a business in Farmington. Farmington raised the taxes on the business 35% in 1 year. And on all the businesses in Farmington, probably more than that. And that's why the Farmington nursery that was there, that the guy was from Coates that bought it, he only had it for 3 or 4 years. He's already sold it because the taxes are too high here. And I know Rosemont, they have more amenities than we are. They do have a bigger city, more people, but their taxes on their homeowners are lower. And this comes from a resident who lives here who has a son who lives in Rosemont. Their taxes are lower. Farmington is known for high taxes for the residents and for their businesses. So if we become part of Farmington, you can bet our taxes are gonna go up, for sure.
Anything else?
I was gonna say, anybody else up here that has any questions over there?
I think we got a
Covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, yeah.
Appreciate your
So
observations.
Mike, how soon before I say we would decide we want to move ahead with this? When do we need to start?
I think you need to start with your public before your annual meeting next year.
Okay.
Yeah, so you guys need to really start looking at, if we wanted to do this, what do we need to do to put our finances in shape? And how are we gonna communicate this to our public? Do you have an open house to hear from your public? Don't know how you wanna do it, but I wouldn't take for granted that your public is gonna be informed and is gonna go along with you unless you basically tell them, here's what we're doing, here's what we're thinking, what do you guys wanna do, here's what we think our options are, you tell us, your job is to represent the people, but you also have to, it goes both ways, you also have to present to the people what you're thinking and what you found out, and let them guide you in your decision, because I agree with what Mike said, you cannot go into this divided, you have to be one community. But that is where I would start. It's those two things, it's working with your public and it's levying the money you're gonna need to do this. The one advantage you have is the one city that is most likely to be casting eyes on you is in a holding pattern for 5 years. So you can have this discussion publicly without fear of them saying, we better jump while we can before they get too organized. So you've got a grace period, I'd use it.
Yeah, okay. You guys have any other questions?
I'm good.
All right? Thanks for having me
Thank you,
down.
Mike.
Yeah, you're
Appreciate it.
welcome.
Appreciate it.
It was very informative.